What's going on, everybody? This is Joe.
And Amy.
And we are here with obviously a very different kind of video and also a very special video. We were contacted by the folks over at the new card game Varia. And they asked us if we would be willing to do a review of their game. So obviously we were extremely flattered. We really do appreciate that they reached out to us. And so we are here to do that, just such a video. And in fact, we were sent some stuff. So with our review that we're doing here today, we were sent this box. It's actually a pretty compact box, and I have to say, we opened it slightly just to make sure everything was in there. There was a letter. We read the letter as well. And I have to say, I was thinking when we got this, we were told that we were going to be sent some like production decks, just so that we could open them and review them and etc. And I have to say, for this box, for the size that it is, and I hope, like I said, I hope that this gives you an indication of the size of the box just based on, like, this is my hand right here. I genuinely was like, okay, cool. There are 2 decks in here. We'll be able to play them and see what it's like.
Right, we'll each open one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Amy would get to pick whichever one she liked, and I would pick the other. And I have to say, first of all, if you look in the description below, you will see a link if at any point any of this looks interesting to you, based on our review or based on what you're seeing. You can go to the link in the description and go buy these decks for yourself. The company passed that along to us and wanted you guys to know that as well. And in the letter, it said, you know, barring whatever delivery snafus, this will be what your box will look like if you receive this product as well. So just by looking in there like that, as you can see, that's definitely not 2 decks.
No, not quite.
Yeah, I was, again, very pleasantly surprised by that when we opened that up.
Yeah,
so,
because this is a size small, flat rate.
Yeah.
United States Postal Service shipping box.
And these fit perfectly and could even fit 2 more of these decks. So very small and compact. That's, I think, a good part 1 of this review, to be honest. But let's dump these out, you know, delicately, nicely. There are cards in here, after all. We want to be kind. And what I think we're going to do is we're going to line these up. I want to make sure everybody can see what we're working with here. So if we go from left to right, we start with the Mystic Monk over there. See if I can get that more visible to people. So you have the Mystic Monk deck, the Death Pirate deck, the 6th Blade. Shift a little bit over. We can look at the, whoops, just throw it across the room as well. The Volcanic Warrior, the Shadow Assassin, the Divine Paladin, and since I went a little bit off camera, we'll go back to the middle with there's no real reason that this one's front row center, except it was the last one I picked up, but the Cosmic Mage. So I thought that Amy and I, when we opened these up, we reviewed them a little bit, I thought Amy and I could turn this into a little bit of a game just to start with. And we could say that we're going to go back and forth, picking a deck apiece. I'll open 4 decks here to start, and then we'll cut and go to Amy, and she'll open the last 3 for herself. So first things first, I mean, I have to say I'm a D&D player at heart, and my first ever D&D character that I ever played was a monk. So I think I have to pick for myself the Mystic Monk. So Amy, I hope that's okay.
It is okay, because I expected you to say that. But I will say I think that might be my favorite art out of all of these.
Ooh, okay.
And here's why. It's called a Mystic Monk. So I like the symbol behind the monk. I like sort of the ensemble choice.
Okay.
The outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very true to what a mystic monk should look like.
I like that. That's a fair point. Well, then I apologize that I took your favorite art, but I think I've explained myself as to why.
So I will actually pick the Cosmic Mage.
Kind of figured. It's funny. It's like we know each other. I figured that might be something that would be intriguing to you. Okay, do you have a reason why?
I like this art a lot too. I think mostly I like it because of the contrast. I see that all the time on this channel.
Yeah.
But the contrast in the art of the gold of the hilt and the against the deep purples and magentas of the sort of, it almost looks like, I don't know, like robes, or I don't know. I guess that purple kind of means royalty to me.
Okay, sure.
Because the Roman Empire or things like that would consider a color like that to be sort of a color that symbolizes royalty. So
sure.
I think it's like, I don't know, she just seems very regal.
Okay.
Right?
Sure, yeah. I agree with that. The colors, absolutely. All right, so you're going to take this one.
Yeah.
That one is yours. My next pick is actually going to be, I mean, you talk about contrast. I am definitely, I know what I like in terms of art, but in terms of, if you want, like full appropriate descriptions of art, Amy's your girl on this channel, not me. So I can tell you, again, I know what I like, but it doesn't mean that I can, go into a proper description like Amy does. But I can say it is off camera a bit, and I'll pull it forward for everyone to see. I actually really like this. I really like this Divine Paladin here. I don't know that it's going to stand up for me. I think it might fall over. There we go. Even though, based on Amy's contrast discussion, there is just a lot of gold/yellow in this one. Mm-hmm. But I do really like it. I think it looks really cool. It's very bright, and it stands out a lot among these other, like, kind of more darker, grittier looking ones behind it, which, again, makes perfect sense, but that's kind of why this one caught my eye. Besides, again, D&D class of a paladin, plus we've done Hearthstone videos before, and there's a paladin in Hearthstone as well. So, whatever. My rationale for this one, for the Divine Paladin, is those. Amy,
and it's funny that you should reference the contrast thing that I just referenced, because that is actually my least favorite art of all of these, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Because there's so few contrasting colors in it. And I think it just kind of takes away a little bit from the realism of the character there.
Okay.
It feels less human. It feels less realistic when there's not as much highlight and shadow and depth to a picture, which is what would be conveyed by contrast or a lot of shadows and highlights, which I just don't really see here.
Okay.
Because everything's very monotone or monochromatic.
Monochromatic, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, then, I mean, good. I'm sure you're happy that I picked it then.
Yeah. So my second choice then is going to be the Volcanic Warrior.
Okay.
This
Bring that
guy.
front row center. So why, yeah, I zoomed in so we didn't have to move it. Yeah, perfect. So why this deck, this guy?
Again, the contrast is great. You mentioned all these other arts being very dark. Mm-hmm. And this one is very dark, but then it's got that very bright, almost shining with light, his tattoos.
Yeah.
Which really convey that they're magical to me.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Which is very cool, but I guess it's supposed to convey that they're volcanic.
Right, magma based. Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't know that you can necessarily buy that he's got like magma under his skin there, but It's a really cool picture. I
Yeah.
like this one a lot. I like the intricacies of the tattoo. That the weapon he's holding has that same magma color carried through. And I like that that the tattoos extend onto his face.
Oh, yeah.
And that the color of his face is slightly lighter than the color of, say, his chest or his arm, the rest of his skin, essentially.
Yeah.
Because it really does bring your focus to his face, even though he's got, a glowing axe, so
Sure.
So you would think normally, if you were to describe out loud what this art is, you would think that the focus would be the weapon.
Right.
But the focus really is his face, because they really did do a great job in this art of sort of directing your eye up to his face.
Sure. Especially with the lines of the tattoos or the magma swirls there leading you up in that direction.
Yes, and how the weapon is almost pointing at his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say in his other hand that doesn't have the glowing axe, it looks like it's a hammer. So to me, it like evokes the forging of weaponry in a fiery forge, which
Right.
could be described as volcanic as well. So very, very good choice. I like that.
Cool.
Well, go for it. That is yours. There are 3 remaining. There's the Death Pirate, Sixth Blade, and the Shadow Assassin. So again, classic ninja pirate samurai.
Yeah.
Interesting. I am going to have to say that I enjoy. It's a toss up between 2 here for me. I won't lie. I'm gonna take this time the Sixth Blade, the samurai.
Okay.
I think if you want my rationale, I think my rationale behind it is, I don't know. I like, again, if it's between pirate, ninja, and samurai, again, there was a second choice for me after the samurai, but it was between samurai and something else, and I'm going to lean more towards samurai on this one. You have thoughts on the art on this? Or, because I think it's fine. I like the shine on the blade. It's interesting. It looks like, to me, it looks like the blade is nicked, although I think that's just the design of the blade, because it looks kind of patterned in terms of where the nicks are.
It's definitely notched,
Yeah.
purposefully notched.
Yeah, which to me looks wrong, but I'm sure there's a reason, and if there's a history behind that with the samurai, I'm not aware of it, but would love to hear it in the comments if somebody does know.
Same. It does appear to be a wider blade than a typical katana would be.
And also, I guess I'll say, if I'm way off base, if this is like a shinobi warrior or something, like inspired by like a shinobi warrior or something, I'm not swearing that it's samurai. It just, that's what it evoked for me when I first looked at it. So if people have thoughts on what this is supposed to be inspired by and it's not that, I'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love finding out more information about anything in terms of history-based stuff or even more contemporary things when it comes to stuff like that, too.
Oh, yeah. All right, so that is my choice, as I said, which means, Amy, you get to choose between the Death Pirate and the Shadow Assassin. And my question is, are you going to pick the thing that was my second choice or the thing that was not my second choice?
Yeah, I will say the Shadow Assassin looks great because it's holding that skull. And that just really, says Hamlet to me, and I love Hamlet.
Sure.
But Death Pirate, I think, is going to be my choice.
Woo! Okay, good, because mine was going to be Shadow Assassin.
She's a badass lady.
Yeah.
I love the gold tones in the hat.
Okay.
That's not what you would typically expect to see on a 3-pointed hat.
Okay.
Like that. But I love it, and I love the almost, sort of Egyptian looking, epaulette
Sure.
type.
The like gold
like,
over here.
Shoulder, almost like an armor, but not really type thing. It's, yeah, she looks, I like the look that they went for here. The colors that they used and everything. She looks very eclectic, very traveled, while also looking badass.
Well,
and also still holding true enough to what you would expect a pirate to look like.
Yes.
This like stereotypical, cliche pirate. It has all of those aspects while also being female, while also, having sort of a mysterious look to her.
Sure.
While also looking very eclectic and traveled, like an actual pirate would. So, like, it keeps a lot of the sort of tropes of a pirate while also incorporating a lot of the aspects of a pirate that I think kind of fall away.
Okay.
With your typical depiction of a pirate.
And the interesting thing is when I looked at this closer, once I pulled it forward, and it really is the difference of 3 inches, like in terms of where it was and where it is. And yet I think because it's front row center and it's not kind of blending in with everything else, I'm also noticing, I mean, the deck is called Death Pirate, right? But if you notice, one half of her face is different. It's green. It's like skull motifed. Her eye is red, which very much evokes Pirates of the Caribbean to me, where when they walk into the sunlight, they become skeletal.
Oh, okay.
When they're cursed.
I'm just thinking of like a typical pirate flag is a black flag with a skull.
Of course.
And crossbones.
Of course.
So I think you're right. I think maybe they kind of tried to tap into that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And incorporate that without being too on the nose.
Right, yeah, without being too derivative. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So yeah, you picked the Death Pirate, which, as I said, this was not actually going to be my choice. And maybe if I had been more aware of that contrast with the half of her face, if I had drawn that conclusion previously, maybe I would have more wanted to go with that one. But my second choice between the Sixth Blade and the Shadow Assassin was the Shadow Assassin. So I get this one as my final choice. And I don't know, like you said, I mean, it evokes Hamlet for you. I would also say because it's darker, like we talked about, first of all, the background obviously lights it up enough. And it's a Shadow Assassin, right? So that's the whole idea, is that it's supposed to be in shadow. But also the contrast of the skull being so bright in its midsection kind of lightens up that area that otherwise would have been somewhat nondescript fully. It would have just been like, okay, we could just look at the top half of this image and nothing in the bottom half really matters. It would just be like a line, black on one side, green on the other. And now there's actually something for you to focus on the bottom half of the card or the image here.
Right. So it gives some relevance to the bottom half of that.
Correct.
But the moon sort of thing right behind his head is, a very perfect way
Oh, yeah.
to create the contrast between the blackness of the hood and the blackness of the sky behind him.
Yes.
And that sort of green that they kind of just almost looks like ripped, like clawed through.
Sure. I like that.
Like a monster kind of came through and clawed through the sky.
Sure.
And it turned green in the spots that he clawed.
Okay.
It gives it a dangerousness.
Okay. To me, I think it's also like clouds or smoke, or like sometimes assassins, like, again, tropiness assassins maybe like seem to just appear or teleport into a particular area, and like a lot of teleporting tropes, like I think of, I'm a big X-Men fan from Marvel Comics, so I think of Nightcrawler teleporting in and there's a bunch of kind of brimstone smoke all around him when he does so. So that kind of thing, that kind of evokes that for me as well. Also, I'll note, I'm looking at this dagger in his hand, and I thought to myself that it was an interesting dagger because it was sloped at the top and came to a point. But it's not. That's the Varia logo coming down. The black portion of the logo is diagonal on the side there, coming down and then cutting it off, it looks like to me. No? Or maybe no, actually, I'm very okay.
I don't
Interesting.
think I see what you're
I thought it was coming up like this, like the whole logo was a line here. No, so no, I'm wrong.
Okay.
It is an interesting dagger, like I mentioned. So there you go. Yeah, that's fine. I like it.
The other thing I'm kind of getting from this green sort of smearing almost is like a comic book feel, or maybe like a Batman sort of thing, almost like you're looking at a cityscape.
Sure.
From a very like sort of bottom and diagonal angle. So you're seeing that cityscape diagonally push up towards the top of the picture.
Sure.
Almost like you're laying on the ground.
Yeah, and he's like up on a rooftop somewhere, like silhouetted against the sky in the moon. Yeah, I like that. I think that makes sense. So I think what we'll do is, why don't we just jump right into the opening, since the Shadow Assassin is the one on the board. We'll just do that one. What I will say is something that I'm aware of in terms of opening trading cards. And again, these are cards that have been shipped to us, so it makes perfect sense that not only would they be sealed within the box, like the box that we opened in the beginning was sealed, but that all of these are sealed as well. But I will note, at least through visual inspection, they look very hermetically sealed. And trying to open stuff like this, I have tools on the side here if I really need them, but I'd like to be able to not have to use them if at all possible. Oh, something else I wanted to do is there is a secondary picture of all of the characters on the back of the box. Let's make sure that it can be properly seen. So we'll go like that. So yeah, there's another version of that Shadow Assassin, and now you can kind of see it. He looks skeletal. We were mentioning that with the pirate, but
very different from the front art.
Yeah, talk about contrast with the purples and the greens and the blacks. Yeah, very, very awesome. Okay. I guess it's cool that we didn't look at the back before we made our choices, and now we can kind of see what, if it would have pulled us toward it now seeing these images as well.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. But so there's a little bit of a lip here that would allow me to rip it, and I'm trying to see if I can just do that without having to resort to a pair of scissors, like so. And obviously, I did resort to a pair of scissors, which again, that's fine. I'm just commenting on the fact that it did require scissors for me, but that's good. That means it was, the packaging was sound for the trip, which is good. Ooh, very glossy box.
Oh.
I like that. That's really cool. The feeling on that is awesome.
I couldn't tell.
No, and in fact, I would argue
is.
that the art is a lot brighter now that we've taken the kind of saran wrap, or whatever you want to call it, off.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like a high gloss, almost looks like a photo style type paper that they've used for this.
Yeah. So interesting. The backing here is, I'm looking at some of the backs of the other ones, and it seems like the text that's on the back here is almost the same for all of them, but it like slightly varies per deck. So this back here for the Shadow Assassin says, "Get ready for the fight of your life. Forget everything you know about trading card games. When playing Varia, there aren't any minions to protect you or walls to hide behind. Instead, you raise the shield. You cast the spell. You swing for the win with your weapon of choice. If you want to stab your opponent in the back, you'll have to put the dagger there yourself." And so the contrast of that and, let's say, the sixth blade is only the last line is different. Because here it says, if you seek protection from every assault, you'll have to deflect that damage yourself.
Okay.
So I like that they were able to kind of change the last lineup while still using kind of the...
tailor it to each deck.
Yeah, exactly. But while still kind of putting forth the message they want to bring across about their game. And again, at the bottom, then it says Varia, the original first-person card game. So I'm actually super excited to open this up and get into it. So let's do that if I can open the box. There we go. We did it. Ooh, very tightly packed in there.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Utilizing as much space as possible. I respect that. Okay, so this is the they call it the bifold, which gives you the deck list, and then there is a. I mean, I guess hey, feel free to scan that QR code if you have a second. Pause the video and go ahead and do that. But yeah, that is a way to learn how to play. And then on the back here is the information about Guildhouse Games. So yeah, like I said, obviously there's the website here as well, but you can check the description for a link as well to buy these kinds of things. So I'll leave that off on the side, and now we have the deck itself. First of all, oh, interesting. They talked about this. So I will say, right, Amy and I learned about Varia, about how to play it and etc. recently. And so, first of all, if again, as I said before, if I say something incorrectly in terms of how the game is played or how a card works or something, please feel free to correct me. We are learning, so it is a learning process. If I use an incorrect piece of terminology, I do apologize. We are going to do our best, though. But please feel free to check the comments below to see if I have misspoken in some way, shape, or form. But I'm going to do my best to remember the proper terminology for things. So I'm showing you the card back here. I like it. I like the idea of a maze, and the logo is gorgeous. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely... I like the labyrinth, and I like that the V itself and the diamond behind it the diamond almost looks like a sunburst. Mm-hmm. And that the V, that I like that it's gold.
Yes.
Sort of shining brightly, that sunburst against the very natural stone labyrinth.
Like gray chiseled. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that too. That's really cool. So let's look at some of the different kinds of cards that are available in the deck, because this is not, you don't open the box, shuffle all the cards together and play a game. It's slightly different than that. So let's talk about that for a second. So the first thing that I find interesting is it's not technically a card itself, but it's got to fit in the box, right? So here you have what's called a cutout and assemble. And obviously, if you can't tell or if you were unaware, the game of Varia needs or requires a D6 and a D4, at least one of each, because on the tops of the cards, on the top right, actually, you can see it on that card too. You need D6s and D4s. So the squares are D6s, and so what that symbol indicates, at least on this subtle strike, this first card that I'm showing here, it requires, or it will be determined, the D6 here, is 1D6 plus 3, or 3 plus 1D6, and then the D4 underneath it, the triangle, is 1D4 plus 3. So just and again, I encourage everybody to go on the website and learn the game. I definitely would not consider myself an expert, and I encourage you all. There is a PDF, a play-along PDF, with which you can learn how to play the game, and that's what we used. And so, hopefully that will help out. But I think that's interesting, where if for some reason you don't have a D6 and or a D4, you can use this to cut out those items and assemble them for yourself. Obviously, there is also the concept of just downloading an app on your smartphone, if that's a thing that you have access to, a dice rolling app or a randomization app or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would recommend that you download the app or just buy a couple days. I mean, I don't think this is very feasible. If you were to sit there and cut this out just so, even with very, very perfect scissors or even an X-Acto knife, and you tried to glue it or tape it, or however you would try to put these together and fasten them, I don't think that they would work the way dice do. I think that they would be weighted on one side. One side would be slightly larger than another side. If you didn't get the fold just right, like I think it would mess up how random your rolls would actually be if you were to use this.
Sure.
So I think the concept is very cool. I just don't think that the execution, like I think it's cool in theory. I just don't think that it's something that the application of it would work as well.
And so, again, as I said, that's not really one of the cards, quote unquote. It's just included in the box for you. Something else slightly different than maybe what is expected, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, is these are stack cards. And so these are obviously miniature versions of a regular card. Again, if we reference the subtle strike here, next to it, you see the difference, obviously, between the two cards is that this is, like the Enraged here on the left is just a smaller version of Subtle Strike, and then Fatigue, same thing on the other side. So in terms of the framing of it, it's just a smaller version of a card, which is adorable. And again, to learn how to play the game, you will learn the purpose of these stack cards, but you do get one of these in this particular deck. The next type of card is one of these. This is one of the token cards. And so it's different, again, slightly, if I recall correctly from the descriptions, the main difference here, obviously there is a T down in the bottom center here, as well as the name is in white, so it is somewhat distinguishable from one of the cards in the actual deck itself, plus the fact that the back is different because it is double-sided, as opposed to, as you saw, the regular Varia card back for your actual actions deck. So this is one of the tokens. You got Snakebite on one side, and as I showed you on the other side, Combat Reflexes. And then the last card type that is not just the main deck itself are your item cards. That, again, I will say, the backs of these are the same as your actual deck, but it's different because these are your item cards. They are separate from your actual deck itself. Your deck goes in one section. Sorry, I'll frame that a little bit better for everybody. Apologies. But yeah, so these are your item cards. You have Profane Memento here in the front, and this is the skull that we kind of saw at that picture on the front of the box. Speaking of the picture on the front of the box, Ebon Cloak is another item. And finally, the Bowie Knife is the third. So these are just some of the items that are the items that are available in this deck. And then if we go to the deck itself, right, the main action deck, as I mentioned, you've got these cards. So these were in order when we opened it. I may or may not, in between takes, have dropped it and tried to pick it up as best I could. So if something is out of order, I do apologize. Hopefully I won't do that again. But I think I got them all back in the proper order. But yeah, so here is...
close to it.
Yeah, exactly, as best I could. But we start with this Subtle Strike that you've seen many times. And in fact, there are not one, not two, but three Subtle Strikes. So again, kind of another angle on this assassin. Still the same assassin. Also, I will note, we were told by some of the people that we were speaking with for this, for Varia in general, that the lore for this game is supposed to be somewhat ambiguous at first. And so there is flavor text on these cards, which we appreciate. We are people who appreciate lore here on this channel. And so just this card in general, right? Subtle Strike, the flavor text is just shh. So obviously not a lot of lore there, more flavor in general. And I appreciate it. It's a Subtle Strike. It's an assassin sneaking up and shushing. And yeah, I mean, that guy definitely is being told to shush. So there you go. There's the Transfusion Drega. This card was used during examples in the PDF. So I had seen this art previous, and I have to say, it's disgusting. I mean, like, in a great way, of course, but the fact that this dagger is, like, somehow connected to this dude's veins and like is like dripping with his blood or something. Like it looks like his blood is like fueling the dagger because it's a transfusion.
I'm going to need to take a closer look at that.
Well, conveniently, there's more than one. So there you go. That's for you. It's horrifying. I mean, again, in a great way. That's obviously what they were going for. So props to the artist. But
Ew.
yeah, it's like haunting, right? Like it's like hooked into his veins and like...
Yeah, I didn't think that was veins. I thought it was just like ribbons or whatever falling off of the hilt of the knife. But
yeah,
it legitimately is his veins from his arm. And then he has like... His body has like separate little baby arms that are like holding his heart or some other organ.
Yeah, there's like something real weird going on there.
With veins like falling off of that.
Yeah, so we'll see if further into the deck if that is explained or shown any better or more or whatever. But yeah, that's a little much.
Real gross, and I guess that's what's under his cloak there.
Yeah. Now, Amy, you wanted to talk about this art, the Phantom's Kiss art.
I did. I thought the art here for this looked a lot more interesting to me.
So in fact, I believe there's more than one, so I'll let you get a closer look while I'm holding this up.
Yeah, it's got much more of like a pastels or painting feel to it. I feel like a lot of these other ones, you know, almost look digital or, you know, a bit more cartoony, maybe a bit more comic in terms of the style of the art.
Sure.
But this looks like literally like it was done with pastels, like chalk pastels, actually. If you look at this part up here specifically and you look at the texture of it, I don't know if you can maybe like push it a little bit closer, like zoom in so that they can really see that. But the texture there, it really, really looks like chalk pastels or maybe oil pastels to me. It really lends like a cool texture, and that second half, that bottom half, almost looks like a different medium. Like they combined a couple of things here.
Okay.
When making this piece, it's really kind of fascinating to me.
Okay.
I like it a lot.
I love, personally, like, just looking at the art, I love how huge, I mean, that's a bow and arrow that he's holding. That bow is huge. It's crazy.
I think it's just supposed to be your perspective.
Okay.
Like, I think it's just...
You're, like,
meant
staring
to,
down the head of the arrow kind of a thing, and so it looks really big or whatever?
Yeah, like, the bow and arrow is, like, closer to you.
Sure.
And maybe it's just, like, a little bit symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, to me, this art is so strikingly different and so strikingly awesome in comparison to the others.
Okay. And I will say you get to learn a bit more about the character, about the assassin here, because the flavor text says, as the shadows coalesced, Boomslang hissed. So first of all, we get a name. Boomslang hissed, head or heart, your choice. So the emphasis on the triple S at the end of the word choice there leads me to believe, I don't know, it obviously to me it evokes like a snake-like, you know, thing, but that's just kind of my thought coming into it. Obviously that's not necessarily what they're going for, but that's kind of what I'm feeling is like, you know, just the elongated S's like that, very serpent-like. And I mean, snakes are definitely... I don't know, have been shown to be able to be, you know, they're slithery, they're sneaky, they're quiet, they can sneak up on you. So kind of like assassin-like in that way. So maybe that's the case, maybe it's not.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Hey, thanks. Here is a Skulk the Shadows. Again, makes perfect sense. This art seems very classic in terms of what an assassin would be doing. There's no flavor text on this one. Behind it, we have Snake, but well, God, Snake Bite. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. But I will say, I mean, obviously, it's called Snake Bite. So you look at the daggers; they are the fangs of the snake. right? They're perfectly held parallel to one another as the fangs would be on a snake, about to plunge downward, seemingly at the same time. If they're done so uniformly, it would be like the head of a snake snapping down on its prey, or doing it to defend itself. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. That would be what that is. And so, yeah, maybe I was right. Maybe I oopsed into it on this one.
I just want to take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, please.
Like what he's stabbing here. Is that... Oh, okay.
It's like a backpack kind of a thing from somebody from behind?
No, it's your...
Oh, it's the samurai.
Yeah. It's
or the shinobi.
Blade guy.
Yeah, but it's from the front. Yeah, okay. He's like holding up his bracer or whatever to seemingly block it.
Yeah, like a shield.
That's really cool. And I also like that idea that like there are multiple characters, right, in different decks, and so this is depicting one of the other characters being attacked here. Now, obviously, like you said, it looks like he might be trying to block it or something to that effect. So it's not automatically just because this is in the assassin deck where it's like, well, clearly the assassin's going to beat the sixth blade. It's like, the sixth blade may be blocking here, maybe he isn't. Who knows? But it's at least depicting that type of a fight between these two characters, as opposed to some amorphous enemy that the assassin is striking at.
Right, yeah.
So I like that. That's really cool. Next, we have the Void Walk. So this was the thing that we saw on the back of the box. Although I will say here, it actually seems, based on the art, not that he was skeletal necessarily, but that he was kind of incorporeal. Because the weapon is going through him completely.
Yeah.
And that's what it's showing. So similar to what you had mentioned with the greens in the original art, where it looked like it was something slashing through it.
Yeah.
On the front of the box. This is something slashing through him. And so you see those like trails coming off of him like that.
Yeah.
I will also point out there's flavor text on this one. It says, "He's made of nothing, and yet my guards are dead." Said by Orem, Jarl of Southgate. So,
interesting.
Right, some type of settlement or something like that that the assassin is entering, and kind of making his presence known in that way. So that's really cool. I love the colors a lot on this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a great contrast. You can really see everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make you feel like it's not the same character that we have seen.
Oh, yeah.
The art is strikingly different. The colors are strikingly different. But you still feel as though it's the same character. It definitely still gives you the feeling that regardless of the fact that there's like a green background and all these purple wisps, and the face color is sort of lighter instead of that stark black. You're not sitting here going, oh, well, this must just be a different guy.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's just a more vivid and impactful piece of art.
Right.
Of the same guy.
Boom slang, as we learned.
Or so I guess maybe it's just giving enough variety in this deck in terms of art and what it looks like. You can compare this to that card that we liked before that looked like it had like it was done with the pastels. Very different. The snake one, again, very different to the other two. This one, very different from the other two. So it's giving a nice variety. So you're not just sitting there looking at all of these arts and saying, okay, well, this is the same guy, and it's basically the same exact picture over and over and over again.
Right. And the way that they did that, seemingly, at least from my initial glance at it and untrained eye, they're different artists, of course. And so what they didn't decide to do was they're like, okay, well, we have this assassin deck, so we're going to have the same artist do all the arts so that it's consistent. They allowed it to have that variance even within the same kind of class of deck, even though there are 7 different decks.
Yeah, and I think that worked out very well for them. I think who they had do these arts, or maybe the art direction or the concepts just in general, really lended itself to create that variety. And I think it's still cohesive. I think it still works together very nicely, without like almost making it seem like each individual card should be in a different deck because there's such different arts.
Right. Right, and that he was drawn, Boomslang was drawn so disparately and differently that you're like you said, that you'd be struggling to figure out if it's even the same character, let alone if it belongs in the same deck.
Right.
So, yeah. After Voidwalk, we have Slice 'em Up. I have to say, definitely serpentine looking, right? Look at the eyes on this one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Very snake-like here.
Yeah.
So...
I love the, like, blood on the tip of the knife.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very cool.
But he's got a sword in this one.
Either that or just a longer dagger. Because, again, these little hands are the ones cleaning the dagger in his middle hands there.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's, wiping it with a cloth? Wiping the blood off?
Actually... Yeah, it actually looks like he's got two swords in his large hands.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually, if you look closely at the shape of his face, it doesn't really look much like a human bone structure. It definitely, and the you can almost see the texture of the skin there.
Yeah.
It definitely does look like a snake head.
So cool.
Yeah.
All right. So behind Slice 'em Up, we've got, speaking of snakes, this is definitely a snake thing, folks. I did it. I figured it out.
Nice.
It's serrated venom, which is also an awesome concept. I love that art, too.
Gorgeous.
Okay, so we're finding out more things. The half hands are never idle.
Oh.
Is the flavor text. So those smaller hands are half hands. And it says they're never idle. They're always doing something. So as we saw in the last art, cleaning the dagger, or in this art, it looks like maybe mixing potions, or pouring the venom in. And I love that it kind of evokes the kind of wispy eyes, kind of evokes like hypnotism, that you're like being hypnotized or mesmerized by the snake or the assassin, which obviously reminds me personally of the Jungle Book from way back in the day, when the snake like looked in the boy's eyes and the kind of swirls appeared and he got, the boy being Mowgli, of course, that Mowgli got kind of transfixed by that.
Okay.
So
okay, interesting.
I like that.
Interesting.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that he's got 4 arms. I think, and I think it's interesting that it says that they're never idle. It actually makes me think a lot of ancient gods.
Okay.
A lot of Hindu gods are usually depicted with more than 2 arms. They're very, I think, infrequently depicted with 2 arms, but sometimes they are. But it's usually just a way of like showing that they kind of are able to control many things at once. Or depictions with lots of arms kind of allows one picture to show lots of different aspects of their stories, their myths. So different symbols can be put in each hand, and you can get a more well-rounded interpretation of the story surrounding that god, even though it's just one picture.
Okay.
So it's kind of an interesting concept. Obviously, they're not depicting this character doing much with those extra hands that's significantly different from what his other hands are doing.
Right.
Holding daggers and holding swords, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an interesting concept to show that, like, if you kind of depict something with 4 arms or more than 4 arms. It's kind of almost to show that they have power, they have control, they can manipulate many things, as opposed to us only being able to manipulate things with 2 hands.
Well, and I was going to say, right, this is an assassin. And so, first of all, you may not necessarily, we don't know enough about this world yet to say, but you may not necessarily expect a snake person to be an assassin or to be in existence at all.
Or to have arms at all.
Well, and right, fair point. And if you do, you might just expect them to have, the 2 arms, as opposed to 2 extra half hands, as we've heard them now called.
Kind of like T-Rex arms.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily a snake, but reptilian.
Sure.
In nature.
Sure. I like it. So behind the serrated venom, we have Arias tarka. So this, just looking at the, what is the cost, which is what is up in the top left-hand side here, going down. It looks like it is the highest costed thing in the deck that we've seen so far. That costs 5. Obviously, other things cost 4 and less. The serrated venom costs 4, for example, that we just looked at. But this Arias tarka, very interesting. 2 characters that I do not believe we've seen yet. And the flavor text on this says, "At Raja's decree, the dark star descended and left nothing but a chorus of calamity in her wake." And that is a quote from A History of House Iqbal, chapter 1, verse 8. So very interesting to me. I'm curious. The first initial thought that I have with this is that it seems like it might be like an origin story type of thing for the assassin.
Yeah.
Like how the assassin came to be a snake character or something like that, that this may be kind of how our boomslang character here was created. And if that's the case, then it seems that it was done by some godly type figure, or at least a powerful figure, because it says at Raja's decree. And it's a history of House Iqbal. So typically when you hear house something or other, like in someone's name, that is a powerful entity of some kind. Typically, I guess at that point, Iqbal would probably be the family name. And so it would be a powerful family that may have, that may be...
Or the location.
Sure. Sure, yeah. The countryside or the actual family who own the home. So yeah, very interesting.
Like Leonardo da Vinci, his last name is Da Vinci because he's from Vinci.
Nice. Okay, fair point. Yeah, again, we talked about Amy being the expert on art. Amy is also the expert on history out of the 2 of us. So,
Do not use the word expert for either of us.
Sorry. She is much better with both art and history than I. Let's put it that way. But that's a very good point, where we cannot hold ourselves to be experts. But I like this card. It feels powerful and significant because of the cost, because of the art, because of the fact that there's only a depiction of a D4, which is the focus, if I recall correctly, is what that's called. So this has only a focus and nothing related to the D6. So yeah, it feels different in a good way. And that's why I say it feels powerful to me, not just because of the high cost compared to everything else.
And the art is also interesting. It's definitely got more of a blended sort of feel. So this again has a sort of a painting or pastel style, like that other one did that I mentioned before, but very blended.
Yeah.
But I like all the skulls on the sides.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
And sort of the longing that you can kind of get from the subject there.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I like it. Like I said, it feels significant to me in comparison.
I'd like to take a closer look again at this. Yeah, I guess this is a god up here.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a godly figure or a powerful figure of some kind.
Yeah, it appears to be sitting in front of an eclipse.
Okay, yeah.
Like a solar eclipse.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting lore.
Yeah, I was going to say story
when we-
beat or something like that.
when
Yeah.
we actually get to read that.
Yeah, very, very cool. I'm intrigued, at least.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign, I would say.
trying to say.
Yeah, that's fair. This stood out to me just in like glancing through the deck really quickly. This card stood out to me because I feel like it is so different, color-wise, theme-wise, than every other card we've seen so far.
Absolutely.
This card is called Windshank, and I would also say, I mean, it's definitely not our Boomslang friend, so I don't know who it is, because it's a kind of a new character that we're being exposed to. We don't know a name for this woman, but yeah, it's interesting. And again, the colors are so different.
Yeah, and she doesn't have veins connected to her dagger, but it does appear to be on fire.
Yeah.
Burning very, very hot to the point that it is a blue flame.
Oh, okay. You took that as the heat index of it. I would just assume that it's a magical flame and that's why it's burning blue, that maybe that's like her magical aura color or something.
Yeah, that's a good thought of that as well.
I mean, either way, really. Who knows?
Yeah, it's really interesting, like the range of colors that were used in this art.
Yeah.
And how bright and vibrant the colors are. It's drastically different from the other cards in this deck.
Right. And again, it seems that this woman is attacking another character who is employing some type of block, which is something
like
that
a
you do in this
force
game.
field or
Right.
something, yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, just at a quick glance, I feel like this guy's a dwarf, but who the hell knows?
It's kind of goblinish, maybe.
I was going to say he just looks stocky and has a beard. So,
yeah, maybe he is a
that
dwarf.
just means dwarf to me. But again, it could just be
like
a
he
stocky
had, like,
human.
a big, almost deformed nose. But when I look closer, not really. So, and he's got like normal ears. So.
Yeah. But either way, he could just be a stocky human and I'm just calling him a dwarf, which is rude. So, who knows? But yeah, behind Windshank, we have Brace Yourself. So speaking of blocks, here's a block. And again, interesting. At least I wouldn't necessarily put Brace Yourself as something that an assassin would be doing, right? This is clearly a warrior who I guess should be holding a shield, but isn't, but is still blocking. And you can tell, like, based on the stance that he is standing in, is blocking in that way, where he has stepped forward, but, I should say, has leaned his upper body forward and has braced with his legs in order to brace for some kind of an impact.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily think that that's something that an assassin would be doing as much. Maybe using the blade to block another blade strike or something, like from the sixth blade.
Well, it almost looks here as though it's sort of magical energy that's blocking.
Oh, yeah.
So some sort of a force field or something like that, like we saw in the last card. Or maybe that is just the light coming from the shield.
Right. I assume it's more the former. It just seems that way, especially with the way that his hands are positioned in this. It doesn't look like he's grasping a shield of any kind.
Okay.
He's just kind of creating, as you said, his own force field. So yeah. And there's Brace Yourself.
Again, very different art. It has much more of a digital type feel to it when it comes to those like energy sources there. But it looks very painted when it comes to the actual knight himself.
Okay. Well, and I would also say, first of all, there is...
Or not knight, he's a soldier.
Right, a warrior of some kind. This card has flavor text on it as well, and it says, as the smithies forge iron, the recruits forge conviction. So the interesting thing that I would say about this particular card, it is... What I think, though, is based on that quote, as well as the card itself and what we were saying about it, this may be a generic blocking card.
Yeah. I would get that impression as well.
So I would not be surprised if we saw this in other decks as well.
Yeah, the same exact art.
Yes.
Even,
Yeah.
Because that makes more sense, because it wouldn't make sense for just the assassin deck to have like a Roman soldier randomly placed inside of it.
Right. Yeah, so very interesting. It'll be interesting to see, or I'll be interested to see, if we see a brace yourself later on. And then again, like Amy said, different art, same art, who knows? But it'll be something to keep an eye out for. Backflip. This makes sense to me as an assassin card, but it's a way to disengage, which again is something that is a game mechanic, and you can learn that in the rules of the game. I like the art a lot. It makes perfect sense. It's just looking cool. I like it.
Yeah, again, nice variety in the art because it does, again, have a very different feel without feeling that it's not cohesive for the deck.
Are they in front of like a field of wheat? I can't quite tell what they're standing in front of there.
Can I?
Of course. Oh, good. There's more than one. Sorry. I'll move it forward for all of you watching to see as well.
It does appear that way.
Right? It just looks like a field of wheat of some kind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this up here, see, I thought this was like curtains of a window.
Oh, up here.
And this was like the sun coming in, but they're clearly outside.
Yeah.
And this is plants.
Of some form or another.
Right. And I would think based on the coloration that it is wheat and the height.
Yeah.
But then I'm not quite sure what these sort of drapes appear.
Up here?
Yeah.
I thought they were just structures. They just are slightly curved.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's very strange.
Yeah. But I guess, obviously, the background is not necessarily as important. But again, the backflip looks cool.
Yes.
Here is a card, Swift Escape. Another way to disengage. But it says, beer, beans, blood. All spills that need cleaning as far as I'm concerned. Keep it contained and you can keep coming back. Carl, proprietor of the Fancy Dragon. Okay, so again, this could work with the assassin because he specifies blood as well. So if the assassin is spilling blood in the tavern, if you will, that makes sense to me. And that Carl's just, trying to keep order in his place of business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. I like that. A little bit of levity. I appreciate that.
But yeah, that art, again, looks like it's the type of thing that you might not see only in this particular deck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and again, it makes sense with the bloodline, or the part of the line that talks about blood specifically. But yeah, I agree with you. It could be a lot more generic than that because it really would work in anything where he's just saying, "Hey, stop fighting in my inn or my tavern or whatever."
Right.
Behind it, so the combat reflexes that we saw the token for earlier. Now we have it in the actual card version. It says armor is for people who get hit. Which is great. It just depicts, it talks about dexterity down here, right? So it depicts the fact that, if you wear a bunch of armor, you're going to be more protected from damage, but you're going to be less able to dodge away from that damage. You're just going to hope to tank it, with your armor. But if you have good reflexes and are more dexterous, you don't need as much armor necessarily because you can just dodge out of the way of things. So it's really good. I like that.
Again, very different art.
Yeah.
But it still feels right. It still feels good. But I love this art. It's gorgeous. Very, very comic feel. But the colors are nice and washed out. Sort of an ombre kind of thing. To really give it a different feeling, than a comic book. Just the depiction of light is very, almost sort of homey. I feel comforted when I look at just that one right-hand corner.
Okay.
Because of the way the light bleeds into those reds.
Okay.
It really gives it a warmth as though it is real light actually hitting surfaces.
Sure.
In that way and sort of bleeding through. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Really, really cool.
The techniques are really great.
Yeah. And again, obviously, as we said, it has a token associated with it because the card says, when you plan this action, create a token. So there you go. That is why we would have the combat reflexes token that is included in this deck.
with the same exact art. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, we showed that earlier. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that it has the exact same art on both the token and this one.
Yeah, it's good.
I think it's very good.
Yeah. And again, they differentiate it by the color of the text at the top and the fact that it would have a T in the bottom middle as opposed to the card that goes in your deck. Plus, the back of the card is not a deck back.
Correct.
So you would hopefully know not to shuffle it into your deck at some other point. Although, if you did, it would be easy enough to find.
Right.
Because God knows I've done that before. Even in, other games where you just have tokens that are drastically different. You still just shuffle it into your deck and you're like, oops, made that mistake before. Oh, that's really cool. So this is aimed edge, but if you look, it's just a zoomed out version of this art.
Oh, I see. Yes.
See that?
Yes.
It's literally just zoomed out from Swift Escape, and now you see the aimed edge, so you see the person throwing the dagger.
Okay.
And it says, as the flavor text, daggers are like arrows, but without all that shaft, feather, and bow nonsense. Quote from Valia, Duchess of Daggers. So that makes sense that she would be supportive of daggers.
Hey, just because.
It's very on brand. Let's put it that way.
But yeah, that's really cool that we kind of get to see both those story beats there.
Oh,
we
yeah.
kind of get to see the cause and effect,
I like it a lot. Yeah, because you can tell that, Carl is the proprietor here, but this... it's, I think, safe to say that this person who is the target of these daggers is not Carl.
No.
And Carl's just saying, hey, if you're going to spill blood like that, could you just, clean it up? I'd appreciate it. But now you're actually seeing the person throwing the dagger as well.
Yeah, so it kind of gives you both perspectives there.
I like that.
And it's filling in the story a bit more.
Yeah, and again, the flavor of the flavor text is really cool. Just the joking nonsense of daggers are like arrows, but without all the shaft, feather, and bow nonsense. I like that. It's funny.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And it kind of goes with the mechanics of this game, which
Yeah.
is very sort of cause and effect. It's very sort of action reaction.
Yeah, literally.
Based.
Yeah, I like that.
And so it's, it's interesting that you get to see both pieces of that,
Sure.
know?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very cool. Okay, I like that a lot. I like when art itself, right, without anything else, the art can tell a story.
Right.
This card is called Shield Kick. And, it looks like this monk is getting ready to kick that shielded individual there.
Yeah.
So again, that means to me that this is more home in the monk deck, but could be another one of those generic cards that isn't specific to the assassin deck, and that makes perfect sense, because this is almost certainly that monk that we saw earlier.
Maybe.
It's the same colors of outfit, it's got the bow and everything. That's just... If you could grab that thing that I just dropped, we could show it to everybody. Sorry. I love dropping stuff today, as we've learned. But yeah, it just looks like the same monk to me, no? Or at least the same, from at least the same monastery.
It looks like opposite color
Okay.
clothes. Like the underneath clothes here and then the over top sort of vestment almost is kind of like opposite colors of what's here.
Okay.
So here you've got a green basis, and then you've got these sort of yellowy vestment pieces.
Sure.
And here it's the opposite. It's yellowy and then sort of the green vestment.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, then maybe it's a different monk.
Maybe it is. Or
Who
maybe
knows?
it's not, and they just, got told very vaguely how to...
Or they have more than one outfit and aren't like a cartoon character that just, they open their closet and it's just all the same tops and bottoms spread throughout the closet.
Well, monks tend to have a very specific
You're right.
sort of uniform.
Right, it's not their home and away jerseys. Yeah,
Right.
That makes sense. All right, fair enough. Well, again, if and when we get to the monk deck, we will see. Shield Kick is followed by Way of the Blade, which again seems much more samurai or Sixth Blade like, but still very cool. No flavor text on this one. This evokes more Old West to me, just based on the clothing and the hat and everything.
Yes, I see that, definitely.
Right? That's just what it seems like to me, even though they have a sword, which is
Yes.
not something that I would think of as much when I think of the Old West.
Yeah, but it's almost like a barbed looking sword. You can't really tell.
No, it's just smoke coming off of it. Or like steam or whatever. So, yeah, very interesting.
Gorgeous sunset in the background.
Yeah,
though.
very, very cool.
I think that's partially to what you meant by Old West. Like, it's just got that sort of...
Sure. You'd expect a tumbleweed to be going by in the background or whatever. Yeah,
sure.
That's fair. And then our last card of the deck is Sublimate. And this card only has flavor text on it. And it says, "I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed." Quote by Allfather Dode or Dodd. I don't exactly know how to read that umlaut over the O. But yeah, Sublimate. Very, very cool. I like, it looks like, is he cutting his arm off?
It looks like it.
Right? Oh, it's a block. So is that your block, that you sublimate the opponent so that you don't get attacked?
I don't know.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it seems that way because it's an air block, like an air elemental block. So it looks like you're just like shooting a blast of air and like either knocking his arm off or at least like shimmering through the illusion, maybe something to that
or
effect.
at least like knocking it out of its trajectory. So it, like if he's like throwing or shooting something at you from his hand, then you're pushing the air to kick his arm backwards.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it
it just
can't do that.
It just looks like it's going through and like the form is like poofing away, you know?
Yeah,
in
I
that
see
spot.
like black smoke
Yeah.
coming off of his body.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Gross.
Very interesting. So, Amy, overall, what did you think of the Shadow Assassin deck?
Pretty great. Yeah, like I said, I think the art is beautiful. There's a lot of variety to it. I think I like the fact that there's some flavor text there, but I also like that some of the cards don't have flavor text if the creators felt that they didn't need them, or that it wasn't actually going to be contributing to what the cards actually did or meant. Or maybe if it's cards that we're going to see again in other decks, they didn't want to commit to a flavor text on those cards because it would sort of pigeonhole it into being in one deck a little bit more than others. So overall, I think this is pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. And again, the cards that are unique to the deck, I think, showed it off well. I think, as we were told with the kind of subtlety of the story, it was subtle enough, but not too subtle, where we could still get an idea of the story. We could get an idea of what is being told to us here. There's some speculation that I put forth, that we put forth, that may or may not be correct, as opposed to, I think it's pretty obvious that there's some form of a snake motif going on here. It's definitely obvious that those two little hands are called the half hands and are used to do various things. So that's kind of not as ambiguous. But what I was talking about with, was that one card depicting the origin of the assassin or not? Was it, just because it was kind of the start of those latter cards towards the end, did it have nothing to do with this deck at all? Because some of those cards towards the end seemed to not have anything to do with this deck, but were more kind of generic attack or block cards that could be used kind of interchangeably by any deck.
Right.
Let us know. I think if it is unclear by the timestamp down below or whatever, I think this is a very interesting thing that we found ourselves with here. I like the idea of doing this review, but spoilers, Amy and I are long-winded. So I can only imagine if you were to
shocked.
if you were to multiply this video by 7, that's how long this one video would be if we reviewed all 7 of these. And so I think we can pull a bit of an audible here and end the video now. And what we can do is say that the next time that we're back, we'll have one of Amy's decks
Okay.
And then after that, mine, and then Amy's, and then mine, and then Amy's until we're done, because I'm really intrigued. I enjoy this. I think that the in-depth review of the art is really cool from Amy, as well as partially me. The look at the flavor text, the kind of the speculation as to what the story could be or who these characters are and what we can glean from all these cards and stuff and the flavor text. I just really enjoy
and
that.
the capabilities. I think we're going to see similarities, but also differences in the capabilities from deck to deck. And I think that will, again, give a nice variety, but also show a cohesion.
Right. So obviously a huge shout out and a thank you to the team from Varia for sending us these production decks to review and to share with all of you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, this was really, really cool. And thank you for the opportunity. Obviously, we're going to be coming back with more. Please let us know your thoughts on Varia in general. I'm sure that the creators of the game would love to hear any and all feedback that you have, but also let us know about our way of reviewing these cards. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did we go too in depth? Did we not go in depth enough? Would you have preferred us to just go faster and show all of them? That's not really our style on this channel if you're new here, but we would still love to hear your opinions. Anybody's opinions are perfectly valid and we would love to hear from you. But yeah, please continue the conversation in the comments below. Obviously, you can check the description. As we said, if this game looks interesting enough to you just from this first deck, go down into the description. Find that link that we put in there, click on it, and you can get this stuff for yourself, because at least so far, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
We haven't played the game yet against, one-on-one, so we haven't really reviewed the mechanics of it or shown it off yet. But as we said, you can go to their website and check out the tutorial or the play-along tutorial that they have on their website, because that's literally what we did to try to learn about the game and learn about the mechanics and stuff. But now seeing these cards up front or up close, now we can kind of have a little bit better of an idea of how things will go. So if you feel like that's something that you want, definitely go ahead and check that description.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of these other decks so we can kind of compare them to one another.
Yes.
And sort of imagine how they might interact.
Yeah.
In gameplay.
Yeah, and again, we haven't really talked a lot about the mechanics of the game, but it'll still be interesting, like even flavor-wise how they contrast. But yes, as Amy said, also the playability and etc. I like that quite a bit. So yes, definitely stay tuned to this channel. Please feel free to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications to find out when all of our videos come out. Obviously, the next few videos will likely be the continuation of this series, so definitely stay tuned for that. I know I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. But for now, by the way, if you are unaware of who we are, because we didn't really mention at the beginning, we mentioned our names, but we are Geek for All. So we do things, if you came here from as a Varia fan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
You can feel free to check out the other videos on this channel. We do a lot of Magic the Gathering content on this particular channel. We have a video games channel where we play a ton of video games. I, as a more experienced video game player, take Amy through some classic games, some interesting games for the first time ever, and you get to see Amy's reactions to the games either many years later or even if it's a modern game as we play through it. So we have a couple of series going on over there, some that we've already completed. Definitely go check that out as well.
Yeah, and as Varia players, we would love to, or players and or fans, because maybe if you haven't actually gotten to a point where you're playing the game yet,
sure,
we would love to hear your interpretations of what we had to say and or what you just think of the cards, the arts, the flavor texts, the game in general. We would love to hear that stuff in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. So, and thank you all so very much for joining us. Obviously, Amy, did you want to talk about our third channel as well, since we were talking about channels?
Oh, yes. My sort of channel, Gluten Free for All. It's a so far, it doesn't have much on it. And actually, the videos that are already there are somewhat Magic the Gathering themed. But going forward, it's going to be mostly gluten-free product reviews. I might do a little bit of cooking back and forth on there, but for the most part, I'm going to be trying and reviewing different grocery products that are certified gluten-free.
Yeah. And Amy is definitely working very hard on that channel. So any and all of our channels, we encourage you to check out. Obviously, we encourage you to check out Varia just from our initial reactions. It seems great, and you should definitely support the people who make it because they're good people. So yeah, thank you all so very much for watching. We would love to hear that feedback from you down below in the comments. That is what it is for. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.